The ego sense is only a preparatory device and a first basis for the development of real self knowledge in the mental being. Developing from inconscience to self conscience, from nescience of self and things to knowledge of self and things, the mind informs arrives thus far that it is aware of all its superficially conscious becoming as related to an I, which it always is. That I, it partly identifies with the conscious becoming, partly thinks of it as something other than the becoming and superior to it, even perhaps eternal and unchanging. In the last resort, by the aid of its reason, which distinguishes in order to coordinate, it may fix its self experience on the becoming only, on the constantly changing self, and reject the idea of something other than it as a fiction of the mind. There is then no being, only becoming. Or it may fix its self experience into a direct consciousness of its own eternal being and reject the becoming, even when it is compelled to be aware of it as a fiction of the mind and the senses or the vanity of a temporary inferior existence.
Small para is describing what the ego is. Okay, so, I had very interesting discussions about the ego and the memory. So remember, he has several cases he has discussed. So now he is telling us what is the ego sense. The ego sense is only a preparatory device. Preparatory means in the beginning, when you are identified with your body, mind, life in the ignorance level 1, you need the ego because that is what centralizes your activities and everything, and you it is necessary for you because if you don't have an ego, then you will not be focused in what you want to do. So ego is only a preparatory device. In other words, after its use is over, it is nature removes it. When you go to the spiritual plane of consciousness in level 2, you lose your identification with body, mind, life. You go to level 2 of the self. Then their ego disappears. It is not necessary anymore because it has been replaced by a truer individuality. So that's why preparatory device. And a first basis for the development of real knowledge in the mental being. Sorry, self-knowledge, not knowledge, but self-knowledge, of real self-knowledge in the mental being. Why is he saying that? Because in the animal, which is not a mental being, there is no real self-knowledge. In fact, there is no self-knowledge at all in animals. They don't look into themselves. They only look outwards. They are aware of the world, but not their own feelings. And there are feelings in animals also, but they are not aware of it. It is automatic and natural. That's what he's saying. So the ego is necessary. In other words, even the animal doesn't have much of an ego. But the ego in man is normally centered in the mental being. And therefore, self-knowledge is possible. But very, very shallow self-knowledge. You are aware that you are angry. That is self-knowledge. You are aware that you are sad. That is self-knowledge. So very limited self-knowledge in the mental being. But it is real. Because in animals it is not there. That's what Swami is saying. Developing from inconscience to self-conscious conscience, from lessons of self to and things, lessons of self and things. Because even in the physical world, we don't know what it is. We know it's a tree, but what is it? From where is it coming? What is its nature? We don't know. Even a stone, we don't know. So developing from inconscience to self-conscious, from nations to self, from nations of self and things. We are ignorant about ourselves and also in the physical world things. To knowledge of self and things, we are graduating from inconscience to consciousness. The mind in form arrives thus far that it is aware of all its superficially conscious becoming as related to an I, which it always is. So, the superficially conscious becoming, you become aware of yourself as something. Because animal again is not aware of that it's a body. It's not aware. It just lives automatically. So here Srimati is saying that you become aware of yourself as having a body and a vital and also an I. Now that I is very interesting. He is saying partly what it is, that I. If you look into yourself, you will see really that you don't think of yourself absolutely as a body, mind, life. There is something in you which is other than your body. Because if you are hurt, okay, and you start looking at your leg, which is hurt, you don't think that you are the leg. So it's only partly. It's a very general statement when you say that you identify with the body, mind, life. You are identifying with the outer nature. But there is something beyond that also, which you feel vaguely that there is something in me which is me. That's what simply say. That it partly identifies, that I, it partly identifies with the conscious becoming. The becoming is the body, mind, life. Okay? But conscious becoming partly thinks of it as something other than the becoming. You are aware, you feel that there is something apart from my body and my mind. Okay? There is something else in me. Vague feeling. And superior to it. You are superior to your body, mind, life. Even perhaps eternal and unchanging. You may even have a glimpse that the I am eternal. Okay, you may get even certain use word perhaps. In a very short experience, if you realize your soul and come back, very, very short glimpse of your soul, you will know that you are eternal and unchanging. That's why I use the word perhaps. Everybody doesn't have it. So, in the last resort, by the aid of its reason, which distinguishes in order to coordinate, it may fix its self-experience on the becoming only. So, in the last resort means that absolutely at the lowest level, by the aid of its reason, which distinguishes in order to coordinate, it may fix its self-experience on the becoming only. All my emotions and my thoughts are all coming from the body. That's a scientific view. So that's what he's saying. Okay. In the last resort, at the lowest level, the materialistic outlook, by the aid of its reason, because science is very much, the materialist also is very much intelligent. He is a very, his reason is very developed, which distinguishes in order to coordinate. Distinguish means making a difference between the body, the mind and the vital, and something inside him which is different. He is seeing clearly the difference between these things. The animal does not see. I keep on expressing the difference because otherwise otherwise it will seem a very bland statement. But this is, in man, he has a mind which can distinguish, oh, I have a body, I have also emotions, but I have also thoughts. They're all different. You realize when you are intelligent. The animal can't do that. Okay. In order to coordinate, it may fix its self-experience on the becoming only. In other words, the scientist says that all my thoughts and all my emotions are only a result of my body. There are chemical changes in the body and hormones are there, and that is what is creating all my emotions and thoughts, which is of course absolutely wrong. But that's what the assembly is saying. It may fix itself on the becoming only, becoming body, mind, life. In other words, matter. On the constantly changing self, that is there now, your body, mind, life is constantly changing. And reject the idea of something other than it as a fiction of the mind. There is no real individuality. I am just a product of nature. This is in the last resort. There is then no being, only becoming. That's a materialistic idea. No? That's right. Or it may fix its self-experience into a direct consciousness of its own eternal being, their experience of self, and reject the becoming. That's what the ascetic does. He rejects the body, mind, life, the becoming, and its own eternal being. You are completely aware of your own true being, eternal being, he said, and the becoming. Even when it is compelled to be aware of it. In other words, I am the eternal being, I am the self, but I am quite aware that there is a body, mind, life. Okay, even when it is compelled to be aware of it, okay, you are quite conscious. The ascetic doesn't say I don't have a body. The body is there as a fiction of the mind, and it is there, but it's a fiction of the mind. And the senses or the vanity of a temporary inferior existence. So all the ascetic completely rejects the body, mind, life. But there are others who say, like in the Karma Yoga, it's an inferior existence. It is not unreal. The body, mind, life is not unreal, but it's certainly at the bottom. It's the lowest form of my existence. That's what he said. Okay. So I'll do one thing. Actually, it's quite simple. There's nothing much. Yeah. So I think we can go on to the next para. I was thinking of, let me see if I can get this summary. Yeah, I've got it. Okay. So I'm reading the summary of what you said. Just 1 second. Yeah, finally I've got it. Oh, my computer is playing games with me. Okay, we'll go to the next one. So what he's saying basically is that in the beginning, you may identify yourself perfectly with the body, mind, life, and then there is no self for you. And or like the ascetic, you experience self and then you reject the body, mind, life. And even if you don't reject the body, mind, life, it's an inferior existence. It's a practical experience in the physical world, and its reality is temporal. That's what he said. So now we go to the next one. But it is evident. So Shilpa, you have not read for many, many days, you can read. Okay? But it is
Yes,
evident.
thank you. Yes. But it is evident that a self-knowledge based on separating ego sense is imperfect, and that no knowledge founded upon it alone or primarily or on a reaction against it can be secure or assured of completeness. First, it is a knowledge of our superficial mental activity and its experiences, and with regard to all the large rest of our becoming that is behind. It is an ignorance. Secondly, it is a knowledge only of being and becoming as limited to the individual self and its experiences. All the rest of the world is to it non self, something, that is to say, which it does not realize as a part of its own being, but as some outside existence presented to its separate consciousness. This happens because it has no direct conscious knowledge of this larger existence and nature, such as the individual has of his own being and becoming. Here too, there is a limited knowledge asserting itself in the midst of a vast ignorance. Thirdly, the true relation between the being and the becoming has not been worked out on the basis of perfect self-knowledge, but rather by the ignorance, by a partial knowledge. As a consequence, the mind in its impetus towards an ultimate knowledge attempts through the coordinating and dissociating will and the reason on the basis of our present experience and possibilities to drive at a prescient conclusion which cuts away one side of existence. All that has been established is that the mental being can, on one side, absorb himself in direct self consciousness to the apparent exclusion of our becoming, and can, on the other side, absorb himself in the becoming to the apparent exclusion of all stable self consciousness. Both sides of the mind, separating as antagonists, condemn what they reject as unreal or else as only a play of conscious mind. To one or the other, either the divine, the self, or the world is only relatively real so long as the mind persists in creating them, the world an effective dream of self or God, and self a mental construction or an effective hallucination. The true relation has not been seized because these two sides of existence must always appear discordant and unreconciled to our intelligence so long as there is only a partial knowledge. An integral knowledge is the aim of the conscious evolution, a clean cut of the consciousness shearing apart one side and leaving the other cannot be the whole truth of self and things. For if some immobile self were all, there could be no possibility of world existence. If mobile nature were all, there might be a cycle of universal becoming, but no spiritual foundation for the evolution of the conscient out of the inconscient and for the persistent aspiration of a partial consciousness or ignorance to exceed itself and arrive at the whole conscious truth of its being and the integral conscious knowledge of all being.
Quite a big para, and we can do one thing. Yeah, I'm not being able to access mine. Okay, we'll go sentence by sentence. Okay. So, but it is evident that a self-knowledge based on the separated ego sense is imperfect. I'll stop here. He is talking about normal condition. Our self-knowledge is limited to, I know I'm angry, I know I'm sad, okay? I know my thoughts, I had this thought. This is self-knowledge because it's not world knowledge. It's not external knowledge, it is your own knowledge. So it is self-knowledge in that sense. So if it is based on the ego sense, which means our normal consciousness, it is imperfect. We don't even know. Sometimes we have emotions and we don't even know what those emotions are. We are very often confused. In fact, you see many people sometimes saying, I am feeling something, but I don't know what it is. Okay, they are hesitant because they don't know what it is. So it is imperfect. Our normal condition of knowing ourselves is imperfect. Okay? And that no knowledge founded upon it means the ego sense. It alone, that means only on the ego sense, or primarily, or on a reaction against it, can be secure or assured of completeness. So long as you live in the ego, and it is impossible then to know yourself fully. To a certain extent, you can know yourself fully, it's imperfect, is already told you. So, yes, you certainly know that you are angry, you certainly know that you are sad or glad. Okay, so it is imperfect. But if you are not in the ego and in the self, then it is going towards perfection and completeness. So now Sridhar is analyzing and he's giving 3 examples. Okay. First, it's a knowledge of our superficial mental activity and its experiences. And with regard to all the large rest of our becoming that is behind, it's an ignorance. So we don't know. We have a vital, we have also a body, but we know nothing about all these things. Mainly, it is a superficial mental activity. We are aware of our thoughts. Even our emotions seem to take on a mental activity. You're not sure whether it's coming from the vital, because normal human beings don't even know there is a vital. So they think everything is mental, which are subjective. Okay. So those who know that there is a vital, even then, they also can't make out very often whether it is a vital feeling or a mental. If the origin is mind or vital, they don't know. Okay. So that's the first condition. It's a knowledge about superficial mental activities and its experiences. And with regard to all the large rest of our becoming that is behind, it's an ignorance. So our becoming that is behind, what he means is that what we are in our subtle being, in our subtle mind, in our inner mind, inner vital, inner physical, all these things are completely unaware. It is an ignorance. This is the first condition. Secondly, it's a knowledge only of being and becoming as limited to the individual self and his experiences. In other words, I know myself to a certain extent. I know, as I said, when I'm angry, I know that I am angry. But about others, you know nothing at all. In the external world, you know nothing at all. That's what he's saying. If someone is angry but doesn't show it, you don't know that he's angry. Okay? Secondly, it's a knowledge only of being and becoming as limited to the individual self and his experiences, not of others. All the rest of the world is to it not self. Something that is to say, which it does not realize as part of its own being, but as some outside existence presented to its separate consciousness. So in other words, you are still in the ego and you know yourself to a certain extent, but you know nothing about the world. Actually, the world, you are part of the world and you can have a cosmic consciousness. At that time, you know that everything outside me is really me. So Sridhar is saying that experience is not normally available to if you are on the ego. Okay? That's what he's saying very clearly. Then he comes to something that is to say, which it does not realize is part of its own being. When do you realize it's part of your own being? When you are in the cosmic consciousness. But as some outside existence present with separate consciousness. This happens because it has no direct conscious knowledge of this larger existence and nature, such as the individual has of his own being and becoming. Just as we know ourselves to a certain extent imperfectly, we have no knowledge of the outside. That's what it is. Here too, there is a limited knowledge asserting itself in the midst of a vast ignorance. Now he comes to the third one. Thirdly, the true relation between the being and the becoming has not been worked out on the basis of perfect self-knowledge, but rather by the ignorance, by partial knowledge. And a consequence, the mind in its impetus towards an ultimate knowledge attempts through the coordinating and dissociating will and reason on the basis of our present experience and possibility to drive at a trenchant conclusion which cuts away one side of existence. So you are trying to understand, and trenchant solution is either materialism or the ascetic solution, Mayavada. Okay? Cuts away one side of existence. All that has been established is that the mental being can, on one side, absorb himself in direct self-consciousness to the apparent exclusion of all becoming. So, this is the one experience. You are aware of yourself fully, but not the world. And can, on the other side, absorb himself in the becoming to the apparent exclusion of all stable self-consciousness. Very clearly what he's saying is, even when you start trying to understand yourself, the result is either you are a materialist or you are an ascetic. You are rejecting the world, you are rejecting spirit if you are a materialist, and you are rejecting the body-mind life if you are an ascetic. You know the self. So in any case, this is the second level. Both sides of the mind separating as antagonists condemn what they reject as unreal, or else as only a play of the conscious mind. So we have to understand this. So one is rejecting it as unreal. Mayavada has got two levels. One level is that the world is absolutely unreal. They are only shadows without substance. But the other one is as a play of the conscious mind. So what is this play of the conscious mind? We have discussed it many times, but I am just again telling you. The senses are collecting data from the physical world, and through nerves, it is passing it on to the brain. So the brain is telling you what you are seeing and what you are smelling and what you are tasting and what you are touching. It's the brain. Okay? So that's what he's saying. So then, as a play of the conscious mind, in other words, the world is nothing but an image in your mind. That's what he's saying. Either you reject it as totally unreal, or it's an illusion of the mind. The mind is playing games with you. That's what he's saying. To one or the other, either the divine, the self, or the world is only relatively real, so long as the mind persists in creating them. Again, the same thing is saying, mind persists in creating them. The mind is interpreting your senses. The world, an effective dream of self, or God and self, a mental construction, or an effective hallucination. He is elaborating on the two sides, says, the materialist is saying God is a hallucination. And the ascetic is saying the world that you are seeing is only a mental construction. It's an interpretation of your brain, the manas. The true relation has not been seized because these two sides of existence must always appear discordant and unreconciled to our intelligence, so long as there is only a partial knowledge. So, even at level 2, where you experience the self, like the ascetic, the world is either unreal or temporarily unreal. In other words, it is not a whole thing. So Srenda is saying, level 1, total ignorance. Level 2, partial ignorance. But it is still ignorance because you don't know that the world is not unreal. You don't know that. The world is real, okay, in that sense. So this is what Srenda is saying. So he is discussing the ego and all the possibilities are there. Okay, so now we come to we have got 6 minutes. We have got about 10 minutes near. So now we read the third one. Our surface existence. Okay.
Shall I read?
Yes, you can.
Our surface existence is only a surface, and it is there that there is the full reign of the ignorance. To know, we have to go within ourselves and see with an inner knowledge. All that is formulated on the surface is a small and diminished representation of our secret greater existence. The immobile self in us things that are there in the depths of our secret nature. The surface memory itself is a fragmentary and ineffective action, pulling our details from an inner subliminal memory which receives and records all our world experience, receives and records even what the mind has not observed, understood, or noticed. Our surface imagination is a selection from a vaster, more creative and effective subliminal image, building power of consciousness, a mind with immeasurably wider and more subtle perceptions, a life energy with a greater dynamism, a subtle physical substance, with a larger and finer receptivity are building out of themselves our surface evolution. A psychic entity is there behind these occult activities, which is the true support of our individualization. The ego is only an outward false substitute, for it is this secret soul that supports and holds together our self experience and world experience. The mental, vital, physical, external ego is a superficial construction of nature. It is only when we have seen both ourself and our nature as a whole, in the depths as well as on the surface, that we can acquire a true basis of knowledge.
This is the last paragraph of the chapter. Okay? And he is telling you the interesting discussion was about the things are separate. There is a memory and there is the ego. And sometimes the memory can disappear, but the ego will still be there. Sometimes the ego disappears, but the memory will be there. And all sorts of combinations and permutations here discussed. So now that last paragraph we'll quickly go through. Our surface existence is only a surface. They are absolutely unaware of there is a below, there is an inside, and there is an above. And also there is something around. The whole universe is part of you, but you don't know that. Our surface existence is only a surface. And it is there that there is a full reign of the ignorance. So in level 1 is our normal condition, all of us. It is ignorance. We know nothing about ourselves. Below, inside, above, around. We know nothing. Okay, we think we know, but we know nothing. To know, we have to go within ourselves. So that's the psychic. You have to go within yourselves. But within self is using in a very wide sense, because even if you go to the self, you are going within yourself and see with an inner knowledge, not the outer knowledge of the senses. The outer knowledge of the senses is the false knowledge. The inner knowledge is beginning to become the right knowledge. Okay, either above or inside yourself. All that is formulated on the surface is a small and diminished representation of our secret greater existence. The secret greater existence is, as we said just now, below, inside, above, and around. You are really the cosmos, but in a miniature form. You are reduced into an individual, and the individual is a microcosm. You are the macrocosm, but you don't know that. You come to know it when you get the cosmic consciousness. Okay? The immobile self in us is found only when the outer mental and vital activities are quieted. That we know very clearly. When you make your mind silent, you rise, your consciousness rises out of the body-mind life and realizes the self, which is absolutely calm, quiet, featureless, immutable, infinite, eternal. That's the nature of the self. For since it is seated deep within and is represented on the surface only by the intuitive sense of self-existence and misrepresented by the mental, vital, physical, ego sense. So he's saying the ego sense is you have a vague feeling, intuitive sense of self-existence. There's something beyond the body-mind life, but we're not sure what it is. But we always think of ourselves as something other than the body-mind life. And misrepresented by the mental, vital, physical, ego sense. Its truth has to be experienced in this mind silence. The mind silence is the self or the Brahmic consciousness or the Atman. When you go there, you begin to get the truth of your own being. But also, the dynamic parts of our surface being are similarly diminished because of greater things that are there in the depths of our secret nature. So which are the dynamic parts? Mind, vital, and body. These are the dynamic parts. Dynamic because there is movement. Above there is no movement. Remember, it's all static. So dynamic parts when he speaks about, it's in the level 1, your body, mind, life. are similarly diminished because of greater things. So what does it mean? They are not unreal, but they are representatives and diminished figures. Your mind is a diminished and distorted supermind. Your vital is a diminished and distorted form of Chit Shakti. Chit Shakti, consciousness force. Your body is a distortion of the subtlest substance, which is Sat. There is a connection. The others are saying there is no connection. Either the materialist and the ascetic both are saying there is no connection between spirit and matter. So they are saying very clearly there is a connection. They are representations. The lower is a representation of the higher, just like a symbol. If you see, I have mother's symbol ring on my hand, and there is a connection with mother, but it is not mother. That's exactly in the same way. The world is a symbol of Satchidananda. That's what he's saying. Therefore, it's a reduced one. The surface memory is a fragmentary and ineffective action. Ineffective. You don't know the real world. Pulling out details from an inner subliminal memory, which receives and records all our world experience. In other words, he's telling you very clearly, the intraconscious, the subliminal memory, receives and records all our world experience. Nothing is ever lost. Everything is recorded. Okay? What the mind even receives and records what even the mind has not observed, understood, or noticed. Okay? When you are traveling from one place to another place, there are so many things on the way. Somebody will be selling something. A dog will be barking in the corner. Okay, a car may overtake you. All these things you won't pay attention, but it's all recorded inside. Even the most insignificant things. Okay, our surface imagination, yes.
Rangada, subliminal memory, can you explain it? Subliminal memory.
Subliminal. Okay, subliminal is when you go into yourself. Kiran, I will send you an email explaining subliminal memory because it will take time. And we have already come to 8:40. Okay?
Okay.
Subliminal memory, I'll send you an email. Okay?
Okay.
You can remind me on WhatsApp.
Yes, I'll remind you. Yes.
Now he's saying the subliminal, behind the subliminal even, there's a psychic entity. That's a psychic being. Is there behind these occult activities, occult in the sense of hidden, okay, secret, which is a true support of our individualization. This psychic being is a support of our individualization. The true individual is the self above. Okay, the ego is only an outward false substitute, for it is the secret soul that supports and holds together our self-experience. Because the psychic is there, it holds together the body, mind, life. Otherwise, they are three different things. And the world experiences, mental, vital, physical, external ego, is a superficial construction of nature. Your body, your vital, and your mind and ego all disappear in time. When you die, all these things disappear. And you, the only remaining part of you is the psychic being. Okay? That's what you're saying. It is only when we have seen both ourselves and our nature as a whole, which is possible only at the supramental level, level 3. It's only when we have seen both ourselves, the spiritual consciousness, and our nature, the body, mind, life, as a whole. That means everything is real in the depths as well as on the surface, that we can acquire a true basis of knowledge. The world is not unreal. The spirit also is not unreal. When you know this, then you have a true basis for knowledge. That's what he's saying. Okay? We have gone far beyond our time today, but we have finished the chapter on memory, self-experience, and ego. Next is the knowledge by identity and separative knowledge. So we'll do that next time. I think Sumki had a little trouble with her internet. So, Sumki, note down chapter 10.
Thank you, Rangada.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Rangada.
Okay.
Thank you, Rangada.
Thank you.
Have a nice day, everybody.